when your mind can become silent and you escape from the physical. Even the mind need not become absolutely silent. I've had some examples here in the ashram where the thoughts were continuing, but they seem to be only small ripples on the surface of the ocean. But your consciousness has gone out and is absolutely calm and quiet. That is the passive Brahman. Okay. The
Yes.
active Brahman is when the consciousness which is outside comes back into the body mind life without losing its consciousness of the passive Brahman. That means you see the oneness and you see the presence of the divine, you are in a cosmic consciousness, but you are in the body. Okay. So you had a small problem with that lotus leaf in water. Okay. Even so, it depends. There are two ways of interpreting that. Okay. One is
Yes.
even when you are outside your body mind life, you are not affected, but the body is affected. So you can interpret that Gita's image in two ways. If you think of the soul and not the body mind life, then you are also not being affected. Okay. But the
Yes.
second grade is you are in your body mind life. You are in the water of the universe. Okay. And you are not being affected. So that is what Sri Aurobindo wants. And the Gita also probably wants that. Otherwise, the image does not fit. No? Because when you are outside your body mind life, the body mind life continues to suffer, continues to bear the impacts of the world. Someone insults you, you are insulted. Someone praises you, you are happy. So you are affected. But the soul is not affected. It is up there watching all these things as though it's a game going on and it's not interested. Smilingly, it looks at all these things like the tantrums of a child. You know that the tantrums of a child is not important at all. So that is
Yes.
true. So you can interpret this Gita's image in two ways. You can say that the soul is absolutely free and it is in the passive Brahman consciousness. But there is a second one. Okay, that is you come down into your body mind life without losing your consciousness. Normally what happens is you lose your consciousness of the truth, the beauty, the splendor, the sense of infinity release. You are back again in the prison of your body mind life and the senses start affecting you. You see something beautiful, you are moved. You see something ugly, you are moved. But the Gita's is you are not moved even when you are in your body mind life. So you can interpret in two ways. Okay. So I think it is now 7:53 with 3 minutes we have gone. So we start.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Rangada.
Yeah. Okay. So the difficulty is created by the exclusive concentration. Who will read today?
I think I read.
Okay, go ahead.
The
Rangada, we have
difficulty.
read this paragraph. 1 minute, Sumki. We have read this paragraph. We have to
Right,
discuss
right,
it.
Okay,
right.
then I read each sentence and you will tell me whether it's clear. Okay. Now, the difficulty is created by the exclusive concentration of the mental being on its plane of pure existence, in which consciousness is at rest in passivity and delight of existence at rest in the peace of existence. So, 4 lines, and we have to understand what he's saying. First of all, what is the difficulty he is referring to? The difficulty is that when you come back into your body mind life, the soul comes back into the consciousness comes back into the body mind life, you are again a prisoner. Now the remembrance of that experience is there, but it is not a living reality anymore. It's like the when your soul goes out of your body mind life and it is there, it's like a blazing fire. Okay. But when you come back into your body mind life, that fire has become ashes. Okay. That's you remember the experience, but it's not a living reality anymore. Okay? But you remember it. So there is a faint trace of that. The shadow of that experience remains when you come back, but you are a prisoner. Okay. So this is the difficulty he is talking about. The difficulty of bringing the divine consciousness of the Brahman into your body mind life. That's a difficulty. And why is it difficult? He is explaining. The difficulty is created by the exclusive concentration of the mental being on its plane of pure existence. Plane of pure existence, the Brahman consciousness. It can be there from the higher mind onwards, right up to the overmind, it can be there. but that is the second level, the spiritual planes of consciousness. You are far superior to the normal man, but you are not yet absolutely in charge and in your possession of your body-mind life. That seems to be different. Your consciousness is different, body-mind life is going on its own way, like a disobedient child. Okay, you want to change, but you are unable to change. You may not have the power. So the plane of pure existence, note the word pure existence. Okay, pure existence, Brahman consciousness. Because if you remember the pure existence is the consciousness which is immutable, infinite, featureless. So that's a pure existence. So this is second level, the spiritual planes of consciousness. And those spiritual planes of consciousness can be from the higher mind right up to the overmind. So Sri had this difficulty of division even in the overmind consciousness, okay, in which consciousness is at rest in passivity. In other words, your consciousness is absolutely immutable. There is no power and there is no action at all in the body-mind life is continuing with this action, but you are absolutely calm and quiet. Okay, it's like a factory which is going on working, but the general manager is sitting in his office there without any. Maybe he is thinking and planning the future, but he is not involved in the day-to-day activities of the factory down. Okay, it's like that, but this is rest in passivity. But there also can be delight of existence at rest in peace of existence. So delight and peace, it's a very interesting thing. Just compare. If you are in absolutely peace, can you say that there is delight? It's an interesting question. Absolute peace, you can say, because there is absence of suffering, absolutely. So there is a background of delight. But that is not the Ananda. The Ananda can be absolutely different. I am saying this because Sri Aurobindo says very clearly in his letter to Dilip Kumar Roy, he says that there was no emotion at all, only a sense of release, freedom. Okay, peace of existence was there, peace, sense of release, no suffering, but neither any delight, nothing. Okay, absolutely calm and quiet. But now he is using a very interesting phrase, delight of existence at rest. So delight is there, but it is resting. In other words, it has limited its activities and it is there in the background, waiting to become delight, but it is not yet delight. But there is peace. Nah? Is it not true that if you are at peace, okay, you're sitting quietly in your room and you are in your easy chair, no worries at all, but you are absolutely calm and quiet. Can we say there is a state of happiness? I think we can, but the happiness is in the background. It's not very, very active, because the active is something, it affects your body. There will be horripilation, your hairs will stand up on end, all this sort of thing will happen. Okay, so this is what Srimad is describing. The difficulty is because you are in an exclusive concentration of the mental being. In other words, you are not seeing the whole. You are seeing only part of it. That's the difficulty. If you remember Mother's message, okay, she says in one of her New Year messages, she says, you can become and have a divine consciousness when you are conscious of the whole universe at the same time. Now, this is not what you get in the spiritual planes of consciousness. You can get a glimpse of it perhaps, but you are not conscious of the whole universe at the same time. Okay, so that's what is meaning. Delight at rest in the peace of existence. It has to embrace also its plane of conscious force of existence, in which consciousness is active as power and will and delight is active as joy of existence. They what identify the words. It has to embrace. What is the it? The consciousness, the concentration. Okay, it has to embrace also its plane of conscious force of existence. Conscious force of existence, body, mind, life, in which consciousness is active as power and will, okay, and delight is active as joy of existence. So you have to come down into your body, mind, life, and also have the power to change your body, mind, life, and also have delight. In the spiritual planes of consciousness, you can have delight. You can have a certain amount of power also, but it's not full. You can have power at the mental level. That's what occultism is all about. Okay, you can have a certain amount of power also in the mind. You can also have power in the vital also. But the body remains untransformed because that has not been done. Okay, so remember Sri Aurobindo, he is sitting in Pondicherry and changing events even in Europe during the war. Okay, or take mother, how she would, if someone said that there is this difficulty, she had the power to remove that difficulty also, provided you are receptive. If you are not receptive, you can't. Okay. So, I had a French teacher who was my classmate in a Sanskrit class. Okay. And this is what she didn't understand. She said, if the spiritual person has got the power, why don't they remove my imperfections? That was her question. But the answer is very simple. They are giving you the power. Are you receiving it? Your capacity to receive it also should be there. If the reception is not there, how will you get what they are giving you? It's exactly like the radio station broadcasting frequency modulated music. Beautiful music is coming, but is your radio tuned into it? If it is not, you won't get the music. So that's exactly the thing. They will give you the power, but you have to receive it also. Okay? So that is what. So when you are in the consciousness active as power, and will and delight is as active as joy of existence. If you can go to the higher level, you get Ananda also and power both. But Ananda and power need not exist at the spiritual planes of consciousness. But as you go on, need not. Some people can have it to a certain extent. Okay. There are examples where you just go to the higher planes of consciousness, you go into the cosmic consciousness, and you have tremendous ananda. Okay, that is also there possible. It depends on the individual. Okay, so Sri Aurobindo ananda and power came later, perhaps because he was basically an intellectual, highly intellectualized mind. Okay, a tremendously intellectualized mind. Remember in Cambridge, he was always coming first in all his subjects, Greek, Latin, and the teacher said that we have never seen such wonderful work. Okay, so very highly intellectualized mind. But the intellectualized mind has to be very flexible. In many cases, it is not flexible, and then there is a problem. One very good example of that is Amal Kiran. Okay, fantastically intelligent man, but there was a certain amount of rigidity in his mind. I had asked him once, what have you been able to do? And he told me. So I know what his condition was. He has told me very frankly. He had a heart opening, but the mind was to a certain extent closed. To a certain extent. Okay, I read the next sentence. Here, the difficulty is that mind is likely to precipitate itself into the consciousness of force instead of possessing it. Now, which is the consciousness of force? It's your body, mind, life, because force is acting there. So, when the mind which has gone up, the mind consciousness which is at the higher mind level and experiencing the Brahman consciousness, immutable peace, when it comes down, Jesus is using the word precipitate, when it comes down into the consciousness as a force, as the body, mind, life, instead of possessing it. So it comes down, but it does not become master of body, mind, life, instead of possessing it. When you possess something, you are master of it. Yeah? If I possess my car, I can do what I want with it. I have my pen, I can do what I want with it. So possessing means power. But you come down into your body, mind, life, but body, mind, life possesses you. You don't possess your body, mind, life. The body, mind, life will insist on its own old habits and will impose them on you. You will obey very, very passively. There is no way. Even if you don't want to, you will. So this is what he's saying. So this Sri Aurobindo wants you to come down to the body, mind, life and become master of your body-mind life. The extreme mental state of precipitation into nature is that of the ordinary man who takes his bodily and vital activity and mind movements dependent on them for his whole real existence and regards all passivity of the soul as a departure from existence and an approach towards nullity. This is what happens in the Buddhistic case. In fact, very frankly, they will tell you that this is our aim. We want to get rid of body, mind, life, and because that is the one that is dragging us down. So you want to go away from that. So this is what he's saying in the extreme mental state of precipitation into nature. That means one who is absolutely identified with body, mind, life, not even aware that he has a soul, is that of the ordinary man who takes his bodily and vital activity and mind movements dependent on them for his whole real existence. This is a normal man, okay, including the most intelligent people also. They are not even aware of their soul and regards all passivity of the soul as a departure from existence. The passivity of the soul when you go out, that is, you are leaving the existence. They feel that the body, mind, life is the real existence and an approach towards nullity. Okay, this is what happens in the Buddhistic case. Nullity, because it is peaceful and immutable and featureless. Okay, this is the nullity, means there is nothing there to describe. That's what is meant by featureless. He lives in the superficies. Okay, superficies, the superficial part of your body, mind, life. Okay, of the active Brahman. The active Brahman here is not being used positively. It's in the negative sense, because active Brahman means you are identified with your body, mind, life, and Brahman is acting. Okay, but you are not conscious that it is the Brahman acting. You feel that you are the actor. While to the silent soul, exclusively concentrated in the passive self, all activities are mere name and form. To him, they are the only reality, and it is the self that is merely a name. Okay, so this is the difference between the normal man and the yogi. The normal man thinks he is only body, mind, life and nothing else. The yogi knows that he is only soul and body, mind, life are only temporary conveniences given to him for existence in the world. Okay, if the body, mind, life disappears, you are no more in the world. It's like the clothes you wear. Okay, so you just use that. If you don't have the body, mind, life, you can't be in the world. You are outside the world. So, merely name and form. That's why we have the Nama Rupa. The body, mind, life and everything in the physical world, all the forms are only Nama and Rupa. Name and form. The form can disappear, the name can change, but the reality will not change. All of us have names, but if you change the name, you don't change. So that's it. Body, mind, life is exactly like that. It is disposable. In one, the passive Brahman stands aloof from the active and does not share in its consciousness. When your consciousness goes out into the, you feel that there is a gap. You don't participate in the actions of the physical mind, the vital and the body. You are not active. In the other, the active Brahman stands aloof from the passive and does not share in its consciousness nor wholly possess its own. So the active Brahman here is in the negative sense, okay, in the sense of ignorance. Just see carefully. In the other, that means when you are body, mind, life, you are thinking that only you are body, mind, life, the active Brahman stands aloof. Okay, you are not conscious from the passive and does not share in its consciousness nor wholly possess its own. So you are not in possession of your body, mind, life. Okay, the active Brahman stands aloof from the passive. Passive is higher up and does not share in its consciousness nor wholly possess its own. It is master of neither of the immutable Brahman consciousness nor of your body, mind, life. Each is to the other in these exclusivenesses an inertia of status or an inertia of mechanically active non-possession of self. So whether you are in the active Brahman or the passive Brahman, both are incomplete. That's what Srindra is saying. Okay. In one, it is inertia status. Inertia status is the Brahman consciousness. You are knowledge, but it is static, no power. Or an inertia of mechanically active non-possession of self, you are identified with your body, mind, life. Inertia of mechanically active non-possession of self. You are not master of your body, mind, life. So when you are in the normal consciousness, it is prakriti in ignorance. Okay. So he is saying that there is a gulf between, this is the difficulty. The difficulty of the mind is that it can be either here or there. Very difficult for it to be in the body, mind, life with full power. Not easy. If not altogether an unreality. Okay. So that means when you are there in the higher consciousness, the physical world becomes an altogether an unreality, or even if it is not altogether an unreality, it is like a semi-reality. Sometimes it depends on the individual. You can see it as a dream, or you can see it as a shadow. A shadow is a semi-reality. Okay. A dream also is a semi-reality. But the sadhaka who has once seen firmly the essence of things and tasted thoroughly the peace of the silent self is not likely to be content with any state which involves loss of self-knowledge or sacrifice of the peace of the soul. So, the one who is awakened, a sadhaka, like Sri Aurobindo, he did not jump to conclusions. He had the experience of the nirvana, but he saw the physical world as unreal, but he didn't jump to conclusions like the Mayavadin or the Buddhists. You want to get rid of it? No. How can it be that there is this division? How can there be division in God? It's not possible. So you wait patiently. I come back to the life divine, okay, where he says very clearly, when your soul comes out and goes into the nirvana consciousness of the silent mind, there are three possibilities. One, the physical world becomes unreal to you. Two, you are in the cosmic consciousness and the physical world is not unreal to you. At that time you can get ananda. Okay? So you embrace the universe. It's not unreal to you. But the third case is you are in a consciousness where the world is unreal to you, but you don't jump to conclusion and say this is total unreality. You are puzzled and you feel that no, there must be some other solution to this. That was Sri Aurobindo case. He waited calmly and quietly until his consciousness rose to another level and he saw that the world is not totally unreal. But the forms and in the physical world, stones, trees, animals, human body, they are all temporary realities. They are born and they die. They are born and they die. In that sense, they are unreal. Okay. So, he will not precipitate himself back into the mere individual movement of mind, life, and body with all its ignorance and straining and disturbance. So, one who is in that consciousness and doesn't want to escape and reject the body, mind, life, he will wait patiently. Okay. He will not precipitate himself into the body, mind, life. He will go on trying to make that higher level of consciousness a fact, even in the lower level of consciousness. The upper hemisphere and the lower hemisphere. All the experience of the higher hemisphere, he will try and bring it down to the lower hemisphere. Again, I give you that sentence of Sri Aurobindo's writing to Mother. The heavens we have conquered, but not yet the earth. So that also has to be done. The earth means you come down into your body, mind, life and become master of body, mind, life. Then you have conquered the earth. Okay? So, he will not precipitate himself back into the mere individual movement of mind, life and body with all its ignorance and straining and disturbance. Whatever new status he may acquire will only satisfy him if it is founded upon and includes that which he has already found to be indispensable to real knowledge, self-delight and self-possession. Whatever new status he may acquire will only satisfy him if it is founded upon and includes that which he has already found to be indispensable to real knowledge, to real self-knowledge, self-delight and self-possession. In other words, he will be satisfied only when he includes his body, mind, life in his consciousness and does not reject it, but he becomes master of it. That only will satisfy him. And that is possible only at the supramental level. Okay. Now we read the last paragraph of the chapter. Okay. So what he's saying is, passive Brahman many people have done. But the active Brahman consciousness is the normal human being in ignorance. That's the active Brahman. But the normal man is not conscious that it is Brahman consciousness. Okay. But he has to become the passive Brahman, he has to bring down into the body-mind life and become active Brahman, positive sense. In the positive sense, you are master of your body-mind life. You know that you are fully in charge of your body-mind life and it is not guiding you. We go to the last para of the chapter. Who has to read?
I will read.
Okay, go ahead. Still, there is a likelihood.
Still, there is a likelihood of a partial, superficial, and temporary relapse into the old mental movement when he attempts again to ally himself to the activity of the world. To prevent this relapse or to cure it when it arrives, he has to hold fast to the truth of Satchidananda and extend his realization of the Infinite One into the movements of the infinite multiplicity. He has to concentrate on and realize the one Brahman in all things as conscious force of being, as well as a pure awareness of conscious being. The self as all, not only in the unique essence of things, but in the manifold form of things, not only as containing all in a transcendent consciousness, but as becoming all by constituting consciousness. This is the next step towards his true possession of existence. In proportion as this realization is accomplished, the status of consciousness as well as the mental view proper to it will change. Instead of an immune self containing name and form, containing without sharing in them the mutation of nature, there will be the consciousness of the self immutable in essence, unalterable in its fundamental poise, but constituting and becoming in its experience all these existences which the mind distinguishes as name and form. All formations of mind and body will be not merely figures reflected in the Purusha, but real forms of which Brahman self, the conscious being, is the substance and, as it were, the material of their formulation. The name attaching to the form will be not a mere conception of the mind, answering to no real existence bearing the name, but there will be behind it a true power of a conscious being, a true self-experience of the Brahman, answering to something that it contained the potential, but unmanifest in its silence. And yet, in all its mutations, it will be realized as one, free and above them. The realization of a soul reality, suffering the imposition of names and forms, will give place to that of eternal being, throwing itself out into infinite becoming. All existences will be to the consciousness of the yogin soul forms and not merely ideal forms of the self, of himself, one with him, contained in his universal existence. All the soul life, mental, vital, bodily existence of all that exists will be to him one indivisible movement and activity of the being, who is the same forever. The self will be realized as the all in its double aspect of immutable status and mutable activity, and it is this that will be seen as the comprehensive truth of our existence.
One page para, where he's saying that normally, even up to the spiritual level, either you are in the body-mind life or you are not in the body-mind life. And if it is so, in any case, both are partial experiences. When you are identified with the body-mind life, you are in ignorance. You don't know the oneness of things. You don't know the reality. And when you are in the spiritual planes of consciousness, the body-mind life is unreal. Okay? So he's saying that the ultimate solution is to realize that both the passivity and the activity, the static condition as well as the mutability, Both are real and both are supporting each other. Not supporting, both are linked to each other. It's like the water behind the dam and the river flowing from it when it is released. The river cannot flow unless there is a static condition of the water behind the dam. Both are essential. So the real knowledge is, yes, there is static water behind the dam, which is the supramental world or the Satchidananda. And the river is the world, movement, activity, mechanical force, names and forms. So this is what he's saying in the paragraph. So, very clear? 3 levels. Remember the 3 levels. 1, you are in ignorance, you are identified with your body, mind, life. You suffer and you also enjoy, but very, very partially. Then your consciousness rises to the second level of the consciousness of the spiritual planes of consciousness. You see that the physical world is unreal, not as real as you thought it to be, and it's only names and forms which are appearing and dying out, appearing and dying out. A tree is born and dies out. An animal is born and dies out. A man is born and dies out. But is there something behind the form? So we are saying yes, there is. The world is not only unreal movement. Behind the movement also, there is a reality which is supporting that movement. That supporting that. In other words, is the river which is flowing the only reality? No. There is behind that river, there is the vast static condition which is allowing the river to flow. The water behind the dam. So this is what you have to know. You have to know this, you have to know that. You have to know the static condition and you have to also know the passive condition and the active condition both. If you don't know, there is a division and you will not be satisfied. Many are satisfied. They say we don't care. Let the river go on flowing. I am in the inactive consciousness. I am in the static condition and I am very happy. That's enough. But you are not master of your body, mind, life. Okay, so there are so many solutions. So there is the solution the Sri Aurobindo is offering. Get the reality of both. So now it's 8:20. We have got 15 minutes. So I'll go through each sentence. Next time we'll go to the cosmic consciousness. Still, there is a likelihood of a partial, superficial, temporary relapse into the old mental movement when he attempts again to ally himself with the activity of the world. So, the word is ally. Ally is a verb here. You have to pronounce it ally, okay? And an ally, when it's a noun, it's a person who is your friend and who is going to help you, who is in same opinion of yours. But an alien is one who is not your friend and he is someone unknown to you. So when he attempts to ally himself to the activity of the world, when the man who has experienced the Brahman consciousness again comes down into body-mind life, he finds that there is a discrepancy, there is a difference between that consciousness and this consciousness. You are not able to make that consciousness again active. Okay, that's what Sri Aurobindo also says in one letter, that after the Brahman consciousness in Baroda, okay, he had a good deal of difficulty in bringing that consciousness down into the body-mind life. He had to make repeated attempts. Even when you are doing an action, your consciousness identify with the action, but it should not. It should remain passive and do the work without being identified with the work. That's what he's saying. Okay. Temporary relapse of the old mental movement when he attempts to ally himself again to the activity of the world. Activity of the world, you are back in your body-mind life. To prevent this relapse or to cure it when it occurs, he has to hold fast to the truth of Satchidananda and extend his realization of the infinite one into the movement of the infinite multiplicity. The realization of the infinite one, the Brahman consciousness. Movement of the infinite multiplicity, the physical world. So, even when you have come down, by remembrance, constant remembrance and application of that, bring it down, pull it down, that consciousness into the body-mind life. Say no to the old habits of body-mind life and go on trying to impose that on yourself. Okay, that's what he's saying. He has to hold fast, cling to truth. Okay, when you are going in the ashram, you go upstairs in the meditation hall and you climb. At the halfway mark, there's a huge writing by Mother. Okay, cling to truth. Okay, so that's what you have to do. Okay, hold fast to the truth of Satchidananda and extend his realization of the infinite one into the movement of the infinite multiplicity. Even when you are physically doing things, you see the oneness everywhere. Okay, that's a cosmic consciousness, which is the next chapter. So he has to concentrate on and realize the one Brahman in all things as conscious force of being, as well as pure awareness of conscious being. Okay. Now I'll give you an interesting example of this. How a person who is in that consciousness sees. They see the soul, which is the permanent part of you, and they don't see the body, mind, life. Okay, I'll give you an interesting example. I think I told about it earlier, but there was a man who came and Mother was giving a lot of attention to him. He came only for 2-3 months and he told everybody, I am from the Indian Air Force. Okay, and Mother was giving a lot of attention to him. And people were wondering why Mother is so partial to him. Okay, but after he went away, there was a man who was really in the Indian Air Force and he said there's no such person. So this man who came for 2-3 months and Mother was giving him attention, he was a fraud. Okay, he had lied that he is in the Indian Air Force. So then they went and asked Mother, Mother, he is a fraud and you are giving him so much attention. Mother said, it is his soul that is aspiring. Okay, and that is what I was looking at. I'm not looking at his body, mind, life at all. Okay, even if he comes today, okay, again, he will get the same attention because the divine sees the soul, which is the reality behind the form. Okay, so they don't see the form, they're not interested at all. In fact, Sri Aurobindo also says in one letter, the divine gives his blessings and his help to the soul, not to the body, mind, life. Okay, the body, mind, life comes afterward, but the soul, what is the aspiration of the soul, that you give. Okay, so that's it. That's what Sri Aurobindo is saying here. He has to see even behind the temporary forms, he has to see the reality. In other words, if you are in the third level of consciousness, or even in the second level, in the higher levels, you will see that even behind a stone, behind an animal, there is a divine reality. Okay. In human beings also, there is a soul, and Mother sees the soul and does what has to be done. Okay. So now I go to the next sentence. The self as the all. Note, the self is not the all usually. When you are in the spiritual planes of consciousness, the self is only the static part. But you have to realize the self as the all. It is static as well as dynamic. It is the physical world as well as the higher world. Not only in the unique essence of things, but in the manifold form of things. The divine is there everywhere, not only in the spiritual planes of consciousness, but is there in the physical world also, hiding behind the forms. That's what he's saying. In the manifold form of things. Not only as containing all in a transcendent consciousness, but as becoming all by constituting consciousness. Okay. In other words, he is there in the being, which is static, but he is also there in the becoming. The becoming is the activity of the physical world. He is here also, but he is hiding. In the spiritual planes of consciousness, he is not hiding. He reveals himself. Not fully, but he reveals himself. But in the spiritual planes of consciousness, you come down, you don't see the divine in a stone. You don't see the divine in an animal or a human being. But if you are at a higher level of consciousness, you will see the divine behind everything. That's what Sri Aurobindo is saying. Okay? As becoming. Becoming is the activity. All by constituting consciousness. Constituting, you include both. This is the next step towards his true possession of existence. When you are only a yogi and you don't possess your body, mind, life, it is wonderful. There is no doubt. It's a great achievement. But it's not the true possession of existence. In proportion as this realization is accomplished, the status of consciousness as well as the mental view proper to it will change. Okay. So, slowly, in proportion as this realization is accomplished. So here is a hint of the different planes of the levels in the spiritual planes of consciousness. First you are the Anumanta, then you become slightly better, you become the Jnata, you become the knower, then you become the Bharta. You realize that there is a connection between your body, mind, life and your soul. Then you become the Bhokta. You start enjoying everything and then finally you become Ishvara. So that's what he's saying here in this sentence. In proportion as this realization is accomplished, the status of consciousness as well as the mental view property will change. Automatically you will go on, it will change if you progress. But if you remain static and content with the passive Brahman and you escape into the universe, out of the universe, fine. But Srivamdeva says no, that should not be done. If you are a integral yogi. Instead of an immutable self containing name and form, containing without sharing in them the mutations of nature, your body, mind, life. Note interestingly that your body, your vital and your mind are constantly changing day to day. With every breath that you are taking, your body is changing. Same with the vital and the mind. Okay? There's nothing fixed about it. Every time you eat food, your body has changed. Okay? Still you feel it's the same body. That's an illusion. There will be the consciousness of the self, immutable in essence. Immutable in essence, unalterable in its fundamental poise, but constituting and becoming in its experience all these existences which the mind distinguishes as name and form. The usual example given in the Advaita philosophy is there is a gold which is always gold, but that gold can become ornaments, and those ornaments can be changed. It can become a ring, it can become a necklace, it can become an earring, it can become anklets. They are gold, but it's only the form of the gold. The physical world is only form of gold. So you see only the form and you don't see the gold. Okay. So when you go to the third level, you see the gold behind all the forms. Okay. And that form can be changed. A golden necklace, you can melt it and change it, but the gold remains the same. That's what Srivamdeva is saying. You have to realize that behind all the forms also, it is all gold only. The divine presence is the gold behind everything. All formations of mind and body will not be merely figures reflected in the Purusha, but real forms of which Brahman, self, conscious being is the substance and, as it were, the material of their formation. It's the gold which is the material of the formation of all the forms. Anklets and rings and necklaces, earrings, nose rings, everything. The forms are not important. In the ignorance, you see only the form. You don't see the gold. The name attaching to the form will be not a mere conception of the mind answering to the no real existence, bearing the name, but there will be behind it a true power of conscious being, a true self-experience of the Brahman, answering to something that it contained, potential, but unmanifest in its silence. The gold contains the potential of the form, but it has not yet become the form. That's what he's saying. But in the physical world, the gold has become the form, and you are seeing the form is the only reality. That's not true. Okay. And yet, in all its mutations, it will be realized as one, free, and above them. In the case of the gold, you can change the forms and you see that, oh, the form is something which can be changed. So in the physical world also, you see that everything in the physical world, the Brahman consciousness is supporting all these forms. And yet in its mutations in the physical world will be realized as one, free, and above them. Just like your body is a form of what? Of matter, which is eternal and essential. It's matter which is always existing, everlasting and real, and that is what is creating all your bodies. Okay? Exactly the same at the spiritual level. The realization of the soul reality, suffering the imposition of names and forms, will give place to that eternal being throwing itself out into infinite becoming. So when you are in the third level, you will see that this static consciousness is creating the universe. Okay. So this is what Srinath is saying. This is what. So you can see the static throwing itself out into activity. Look at the words, very interesting. The realization of the soul reality, suffering the imposition of names and forms in the physical world, will give place. In the beginning, you see only names and forms. It will give place to that eternal being throwing itself out into infinite becoming. You will see that the gold is the reality, and the gold is throwing itself into all the forms in the physical world. It's becoming necklace, anklet, nose ring, ear ring, whatnot, okay, bracelet. All existence will be, to the consciousness of the yogin, soul forms. Now that, replace the word soul with gold. Okay, gold is a reality, and they become all gold forms, and not merely idea forms of the self, of himself, one with them, containing in his universal existence. All the soul life, mental, vital, bodily existence of all that exists will be to him one indivisible movement and activity of the being who is the same forever. The self will be realized as the all in its double aspect of immutable status and mutable activity. You are realizing the river is a reality, you are realizing that the water behind the dam is also a reality. The static and the movement, both are real to you. And it is this that is seen as a comprehensive truth of our existence. When you see both, that's a comprehensive truth. And when can you get that? Cosmic consciousness, which is the next chapter. So next time we'll go to the cosmic consciousness. Okay? So, many people get the cosmic consciousness also, but then they come down into the body mind life and lose that. Okay? It remains only a remembrance. Okay? So they're saying it has become permanent. That's the difference between this normal yogin who gets the cosmic consciousness but can come down again, and it remains only a memory, but it's not a reality anymore to him. So they're saying you have to make that a reality. Okay? So we go to my page 392. So you can make your own note. Okay?